Welcome to a video by Consordini.com. Today we'll have a look at the best MIDI keyboards currently available. If you prefer reading instead of watching, you can check this list in an article form by clicking the link in the description. Like with our video on the best audio interfaces, I'll be going down the list based on price, from cheapest to the most expensive. And at the end of the video, I'll go over some comparisons on how the price translates and what you get when buying the keyboard. One difference from the previous video is that I'll include a bundle software on screen, but I won't go over what it is, as these things might change or not even come useful to some people, so I'll only focus on the hardware itself. Some keyboards might be more suited for a performer and others a producer, as some focus on providing the best playing experience and others focus on how much control you have by simply using the keyboard. That includes additional knobs, buttons, and pads. In this video, we'll feature keyboards that have anywhere from 2 octaves to 4, 5, and even 7 that are physically usable while utilizing the MIDI keyboard. So to start off, let's look at a very popular choice that's great for producers. AKAI MPK Mini MkII. It's a 25-key MIDI, which just means you have 2 octaves to play with, but like most modern MIDIs, it also includes octave pitch buttons, which allow you to go down and up an octave digitally, bypassing the physical limits of the keyboard. Of course, it's not ideal for someone who is interested in using the MIDI in a more traditional way and is used to recording most of the production manually and in a singular set, as only having 2 physical octaves usually forces you to record more complex chord progressions in multiple sets, splitting certain aspects of it into individual pieces. But that shouldn't really bother you if you're looking into this particular MIDI, as it's more catered for production, having most things you would look for in a MIDI, like 8 individual pads used for drum machines or anything you would like to reroute it to, along with the 8 individual assignable Q-Link knobs, which might come in handy if you have VSTs that support it, or to have direct control with automation, which might end up being a more natural way of working to some, not having to do it digitally into DAW. For performers, it also includes a powerful arpeggiator and a note repeat trigger, and as well, instead of a wheel, there's a thumbstick to control pitch and bend modulation, which to some might be very intuitive. So overall, it's an incredible package for the price, coming at just around $100. It's no surprise it has been one of the more popular MIDIs out there. Following up in a bit of a different route while staying at the same price point, we have the Keystation 49 MkIII from M-Audio, which is catered more towards playing rather than production, having 4 physical octaves but little to no other control on the keyboard itself, past the pitch and modulation wheels. It's a quite well-known MIDI for its price, and even though it doesn't have some other bells and whistles of other MIDIs, it's a wonderful entry port for someone who's looking into transitioning into producing or playing music digitally. Being a light and compact keyboard, it's a nice choice for someone who's not yet ready to have a cluttered, all-out setup, or someone who's looking into traveling with it. It's not the most complex thing out there, but it definitely does a job well for its price. Alesis V61. Joining the 2 previous entries, it meets somewhere in the middle, having the best of both worlds. Not only does it have 5 physical octaves, it also has 8 pads, 4 assignable knobs, 4 assignable buttons, not to mention the pitch and modulation wheels. So to say the least, it looks like a wonderful choice right off the bat. Also, leaving the small or limited key area, this MIDI has full-sized semi-weighted keys, which is great, as most budget MIDIs stick to mini keys, which might take some getting used to. It's also quite light, so that could be both a positive and a negative. If you're looking to travel, it's great. If you're looking for a stationary setup, it might feel just a bit too light and not as robust as you would like to. But overall, it's definitely a wonderful keyboard for this price range, and it might be difficult to find a better option. Novation Launchkey 49 MkII. Crossing over to the $200 mark, we make some sacrifices to allow for some additional things for production and live performing. The Novation Launchkey is definitely an interesting one. Having 4 physical octaves, the keys take a back seat for what really shines in this MIDI. On the board, you'll find 16 pads, which is quite a big number for a MIDI, but at the same time, they are also rather small in comparison, but it allows easy use of the pads without switching banks. You'll also find 8 assignable knobs, pitch and modulation wheels, which by now is expected, and an addition that is quite rare, 9 individual faders, which makes this MIDI quite a powerful tool for producers that want to really get a hand on their production. It's a quite unique one, and even though there are cheaper MIDIs for someone who's just looking to play, Novation Launchkey ends up being an entry point for an all-out production workhorse coming at a decently affordable price. Arturia KeyLab Essential 61. Following in the shoes of Launchkey by Novation, this keyboard is an all-around work tool, doubling down on having full control with the keyboard. Now having 5 physical octaves, which is a step above our previous entry, it doesn't cut down much on other features either. It has 8 pads, which are not only backlit but also velocity sensitive, 9 faders, 9 encoders with 1 clickable encoder, 6 transport switches, 4 command switches, and the pitch and modulation wheels. And if that isn't a mouthful, I don't know what is. Even from the spec sheet, you can clearly see that it's an impressive package, but that doesn't even cover everything. You can program entire tracks with keys, drums, samples, and so on, all from the KeyLab, which makes it a very powerful live performance tool. Not to mention, Arturia has added a chord function that lets you trigger complex chords by pressing a single note, making composition much easier and faster. So if you're looking for an affordable option that has everything in one nice package, this is definitely a worthy choice. Roli Seaboard Block. Continuing with high-tech in mind, this entry has to be the most advanced MIDI out in the market. Even though from the outside it might look like a very minimalistic and simple MIDI with no bells and whistles we've been covering up to now, the simple design only helps its strengths. Roli is a revolutionary and one-of-a-kind company that's producing one of the most interesting MIDIs currently available, as the Seaboard is the only keyboard that works in 5D. And even though that might sound confusing at first, all that means is that it's a soft pressure sensitive surface with 24 raised keys which can be manipulated in various ways. By the words from Roli themselves, their 5 dimensions of touch are strike, press, glide, slide, and lift. And these simply are the actions that the keyboard registers. To make it a tad bit easier to understand, here's a video that highlights its functionality. But no matter how impressive that is and how many doors it opens, it still can't replace a traditional keyboard, as it simply isn't designed for a piano-like instrument that most people would be used to. But if you decide that the Seaboard Block is exactly what you're looking for, it doesn't hurt that the Block series from Roli is an expandable system allowing you to easily add more components to the MIDI, expanding how many keys you have, maybe adding a couple of pads or even buttons. It's definitely unique. M-Audio Hammer 88. Returning to a traditional form factor and a simple design cutting out any additional features, we have the Hammer 88 by M-Audio. This is not only the midpoint in the list but also in the price, reaching the $500 mark. It offers 8 physical octaves and, as the name implies, 88 keys. It's the most simple entry in the list, focusing on the basics. It's built for a realistic piano playing experience and aimed at musicians who primarily play the piano but want the control that MIDI keyboards offer, allowing to manipulate the sound with many wonderful VSTs available in the market. But the simplicity also makes the keyboard quite unique, as the level of realism in the weight and action of the keys is a rarity when it comes to MIDIs. The only onboard controls are the pitch and modulation wheels and a single fader that can be assigned to your preference. Also, as you would expect from a keyboard with such a realistic piano feel, it has 3 pedal inputs for sustain, soft, and expression for more realism. And that's all there is to it. It's a very specialized, wonderful MIDI that some people would die for, while others wouldn't find much use for it. But that's why we have 10 MIDIs on the list. Studiologic Numa Compact 2X. Returning to a familiar field of MIDIs, but sticking to a similar format, the Numa Compact 2X offers the same amount of keys as the M-Audio Hammer 88. What makes this unique from the previous offerings is that it's a hybrid keyboard, allowing you to use it without a computer with the onboard sounds. It's a semi-weighted keyboard coming on the lighter side, which makes for a positive as you can get around with just this keyboard if you have to travel. The onboard sounds have wonderful pianos, organs, and synths that sound good even through the inbuilt speakers. But that's just for the keyboard itself. If we look at it as a MIDI, it has 9 drawbars for the sound engine, but they can be assigned to your DAW or VSTs. Instead of pitch and modulation wheels, it has joysticks, which will always be up to preference, but overall this keyboard is a wonderful example of a keyboard that really has everything in its package. Well, maybe not including the pads, but this keyboard might be more catered for a performer than a producer. Akai MPK Road 88. Moving on to the last 2 entries, we'll stick to 88 keys, just like the previous 2. And when it comes to the MPK Road 88, it's something along the lines of the M-Audio Hammer 88, just doubling down on being travel friendly. It's built into a custom hard flight case, which makes it more than easy to travel and move from gig to gig. Not only does it have realistic hammer action keys, it comes ready with some first-class virtual instruments, like Air Music Tech DB33, Velvet, and Mini Grand. Not to mention it features a 4-output sound card, so you can route your virtual instruments to monitors, mixers, etc. simultaneously with no issues. It's definitely a step up, being an impressively rugged and durable MIDI with amazing sounding virtual instruments and easy access to your VSTs with the guarantee that it will survive any tour. It's an amazing choice. Native Instruments Komplete Kontrol S88 MkII. And with this final keyboard, we reached the end of the list, and the Komplete Kontrol S88 MkII has to be one of the cleanest and slickest looking MIDIs on the list. A clear difference from any other keyboard on the list is that all of the 88 keys are illuminated by RGB lights, which not only adds some visual spice, it serves a nice practical use. For example, if you have drums mapped to certain keys and synth sounds to others, drums could be purple and synths yellow, as the colors are used to show different split groups. But moving on, by no surprise, it has 88 hammer action keys that have pretty convincing feel, including aftertouch, which might not be that big of a deal for a heftier keyboard, but it's a nice addition nonetheless. Now, about why it's great for production. If you use Native Instruments Komplete Instruments VST, it's pre-mapped to the Kontrol S88 keyboard, which makes setup non-existent, and on the top of that, when you use your VSTs, there are 2 color screens to help you find and select whatever you need quickly. For some more onboard controls, there are transport controls that work with all major DAWs, 8 assignable knobs and pitch bend modulation wheels, and underneath the wheels you will find a touch strip, which can be very useful depending on the sound instrument you're using. The only drawback is that if you're looking for a realistic playing experience, the previously mentioned M-Audio Hammer 88 or the Akai MPK Road 88 would provide a better experience, but if you want an all-around package with the incredible support for your DAW and Native Instrument VSTs, there might not be a better choice. But that rounds up our list, covering the market of MIDI keyboards from $100 to $1,000, giving you many options for many uses and price ranges. So hope you found at least a single keyboard that caught your eye. Now, just to round up the entire video with something a bit more legible, here are some comparisons. Once again, this video was brought to you by Consordini.com, and if you want a more extensive text-based list, please check our article by clicking the link in the description. Thank you for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below.